Good morning, people, family, and friends. I hope all is well. Forgive me for the difficulty on Facebook this morning, and please feel free to join me at any time. As you can see, my favorite co-host is not available at this time. She's out there making her thoughts become reality, and I'm so proud of her for that. Before I start this broadcast, though, I must give my sponsorships shout-outs and give them their due respect. Changing Lives at Home, Green Veteran Donation Center,jalexjules.com, hefehead.com, knotedtogether.com, lacruiser.com, premiertagandtitle.com, and last but not least, synergy.com. Thank you for all the sponsorship, and thank y'all, family and friends, for continuing to join Chet Chats on a daily basis. Today, since my co-host and very important person, you see I'm looking through the side, is not available. Hey, Shah, thanks for joining. I would like to talk about education and literacy, as well as learning. And before I get started, some of these things I already looked up because I knew what I was going to talk about. And as I shared with people before, a lot of people don't know. I don't know what Shia might talk about. Well, education is a noun. It's the process of receiving or giving systematic instructions. Learning is a noun. Is the acquisition of knowledge or skills through experience, studies, or by being taught. Now, the reason I bring these topics up to discuss is because I found out through my long sabbatical prison limiting sentence that a lot of America, in particular in prison, are illiterate. So I looked up the state of literacy in America. Presently, right now, we have a combined 330 million plus people living in the United States from the last census report. So with that being stated, approximately 32 million adults in the United States can't read according to the U.S. Department of Education National Institute of Literacy on a third grade reading level. The ECD found that 50% of the U.S. adults can't read a book written at an 8th grade reading level. Now in the state, the reason I bring this up, because I believe personally, and I continue to pass this on to my children as well as others, learning to read and write is extremely important if you want to change your current circumstances. And the reason I say that is because this particular right or privilege was not granted to a lot of people. And let me explain. Forgive me for skipping around, but this is very dear to me. In 1831, they had a slave revolt because some slaves were able to learn to read and write and understand their worth. So with that being stated, all slave states except for Maryland, Kentucky, and I think Tennessee passed laws that prohibit anyone teaching a person of color how to read and write. It was against the law to do that. So you could not teach a slave how to read and write. And the reason they put that law into place is because education was provided to only a few. And this preserved a class system that exists today that kept the poor powerless and the rich powerful. Literacy has been used as a method of social control and oppression throughout time. Now, I understand this, and a lot of people will maybe agree with me or disagree with me. However, I know the importance of reading and writing. Many I did not know that was illiterate, me personally, until I actually went to prison. And then I learned that so many people could not even read their own charge papers, nor did they know what they were actually incarcerated for. It saddens me. So people, hey Lawrence, thank you for joining in. Please, people, feel free to chime in. Charles, thank you for coming in. And if I don't get y'all, because a lot of people I don't get to see as the show go on, however, please feel free to chime in. So with this being stated, people, and I often wonder, how did we get to this state? But what's more important, how do we get from this state of not being illiterate in America in particular, because this is where I live and the mass majority of my viewerships are from America. So I was thinking, you know, how we often have wars on other subject matters. Why not change the narrative on let's have a resolve in getting people to learn how to read and write, especially men of color, is extremely important. It saddens me because so many people go away, and this is a stat that I'm not making up, people. These are stats that I looked up through Google and other various sources. 75% of the prison population is illiterate. Our current state of imprisonment, whether federal or state, is over 2.2 million people. So you do the math in that. 75% of us, and when I say us, I'm not excluding myself. I told people I don't exclude myself from the situation, even though I personally know how to read and write and do have a college degree. However, I'm in the struggle with the mass majority of people because I believe we can have a resolve in this particular issue. Now, 75% of the prison population is illiterate. Statistics show that only 16% return to prison if they get literacy help. 16%. And I know that's so high too to return to prison. But let me give you the other number that's even more alarming, if not alarming to you. 70% will return to prison if they don't get any literacy help. Now, again, people, I know a lot of people that's educated, and I also learn a lot of people that are what I call can't functionally read at a level that's necessary to achieve greatness within them, in my personal opinion, some of it. Have some people achieve greatness without learning to read and write? Absolutely. It would be called an anomaly. However, in the United States of America, as I gave you facts and why they chose not to educate you nor allow you to continue to learn. These are facts. So it's a system has been put in place to keep this actual perpetual movement going on in America. Now, in America, whites make up 64% of the population, Hispanics like 16%, and blacks, I believe, 13%, and then there's other. In the prison system, 39% are Caucasian, 19% are Hispanic, and an alarming 40% are black or Afro-American. I'm not going to get into that part of it. However, that has to be alarming to people, and we're wondering why our State of the Union is in this magnitude. Please, people, understand, if you have any friends, children, anybody that you consider dear and near to you, please ask them, do they truly know how to read and write? Because this is a resolve that can be taken care of without a lot of finances involved. Meaning, a lot of these other programs that we want to have wars on and discussions on, it takes a lot of money to resolve potentially these issues. In my opinion, literacy is an easier resolve for people. And people, young ladies and men, yes, we always I know my co-host and I always talk about this, being accountable. And accountability and responsibilities are important in my opinion. So I know the importance of learning how to read and write. Everything they do in the United States is mainly a type of contract, a legal binding contract in some capacity, whether it's learning your interest rates, if you see it in the small print, whether it's a return policy on things you might have purchased. Even in restaurants, they have policies put in place. These policies are put in place to protect the establishment for the most part and to protect yourself in some areas. However, if you can't read or write what's going on, how do you get a better understanding? And that's where I believe it's imperative that our mindset change. It's extremely imperative. When you're talking about 50% of the United States adults can't read a book written on an 8th grade reading level. So what do you think happens when they go to get health insurance, medical insurance, life insurance, and any other insurance that potentially could help them advance in their life? So you gotta know its importance in reading, people. I know oftentimes people might, I might laugh and joke and not be serious at times. But today I'm extremely serious in the importance of being literate in America. So many people go around in America that cannot read nor write. And please don't be ashamed of it, because something could have happened in your life that caused you not to be able to get the necessary tools to proceed forward in this world called life. However, it's never too late. And if you do the math behind it, they did this system. And when I say they, the 1% to 3% that are making a major lot of decisions based upon their knowledge and not giving it to your knowledge. It was an old saying that people used to tell me, if you want to keep it from a person of color, put it in the book. And I didn't understand that when I was younger. So I was like, what they mean by put it in the book? So as I gotten older, I realized when they say put it in the book, they were meaning that most people of color do not pick up a book to read on a regular basis. Now, and again, I'm not trying to make this a color issue. I'm just making it a literacy issue. And it's important that all people learn to read and write, because if you continue not to learn to read and write, how can you ever participate in this game called life? I always say this often. Are they only going to change the rules when you get to know understanding the rules? Okay, if they change the rules as you get to understanding the rules, at least you are abreast on what's going on. And then that way you can either catch up or surpass what's going on. However, if you don't know what the rules are or how to play the rules, and the only time you learn the rules are when you're faced with your freedom being taken from you as it relates to imprisonment, that's not a good learning spot for me, in my particular opinion. You should learn how to read and write now. It's imperative, people, that we change our mindset. And again, when you're talking about 32 million people in the United States do not know how to read on a third grade reading level, think about that, people. I want that to soak in for you and whatnot, because it's extremely imperative that we learn how to read and write. And I get it. Things come about when you make certain decisions based upon your circumstances. However, it should never deteriorate you from learning how to read and write. If they are putting systems in place that keep you oppressed, depressed, and not evolving to your greatness that God has given inside you, you must change that, people. You must. And again, I don't have all the answers. Hey, Tanisha, thank you for joining in. I do not have all the answers. However, 75% of state prisoners have not completed a high school diploma. That's frightening, people. And just think that your daughter or your son are born to interact in some type of basis with somebody that's illiterate if you are literate. And I'm not shaming anybody on this, because this is something that we can all have a resolve for. It's just the will to change your mindset and stop thinking being slick is a gangster. And I'm not knocking those who even choose to be what they call a gangster. However, as you state, if you choose to go down that path, please learn how to read and write, because 9 times out of 10, you're going to have to face the judicial system in one capacity or another, whether it's by your doing or somebody else doing that don't want to face the system. That means snitching on you. If that went above some people's head, and I know it didn't. However, you're going to face the penal system any particular given day. So if you're facing this, why not have the necessary tools that allowed it to you freely now? Because people died for you to have these rights to be able to read and not be slaughtered because you choose to learn to read and write. However, we, for some odd reason, and when I say we, again, I don't exclude myself, even though I do know how to read and write. But I say we because it hurts my heart when I went to prison and realized how many people did not know how to read and write. Yes, I taught people while in prison how to read and write. Yes, I'm proud of that. That's a bigger accomplishment for me. And let me tell you why. Because no amount of money could be placed on them learning how to read and write. They took it upon themselves to reach out for help, and people, Don't be afraid to reach out for help. They took it upon themselves. I did not shame them because I'm not the one in the shaming business. However, we took the necessary tools to teach them how to learn to read and write. And most people, especially in them circumstances, that's the most opportune time to learn, especially because they're giving out very long, lengthy sentences for most people. Sorry to say, unless you cooperate. And you know how that go with the current things that's going on in the United States, so forth and so on. But that's not the topic that I'm on. I'm on the topic of education and learning and the extreme importance of it. Think about it. They ask you, have you completed high school with a high school diploma or a GED? And when you can't even fill that part out on the application, what do you think going to happen? And this is what I learned from HR people. The more knowledge you know as far as it relates to being hired, the more they're willing to hire, meaning the completion, because they feel you're able to complete a task. Meaning, you go to 12th grade, you completed that. You get a bachelor's degree, you completed that. A master's, and then a doctorate degree. So right there are steps of completion in time frame. So most people in the HR department that I've talked to, they say if you're able to complete a task for yourself, they feel you'll be able to complete a task for our business. So that's how they do a lot of hiring. So now if you come in as an applicant, you might have all the will and desire to learn this particular position. However, if they look on your application, forget question 5 or 7. I can't remember which one, whether you've been incarcerated for a felony or not. However, when they look on your application and they don't see a GED nor a high school diploma, what do you think as a person hiring you? We do role reversal. Do role reversal. And again, you can have skill sets that can complete that job. However, they're only getting a glimpse of you through a piece of paper. Again, people, what did I say? Everything they do is written down on pieces of paper. Think about it. So now, if that be the case, with that being stated, why not get the necessary tools so you can then make yourself a valuable candidate for a particular job? Now, I get it. People are, oh, man, I don't have time. But you have time to potentially lose your freedom for what? So if you have time to potentially lose your freedom, learn to read and write. So then you can then at least know the laws that's being applied to you each and every day out in society. Yes, they're making a law as we speak, people. Whether it passed through Congress or not, they're putting it in the office to make a law as we speak. And I don't know which law they might be making, but they make a law as we speak. Yes. So again, the state of literacy in America is extremely important to me. Again, people, please feel free to chime in. I do not have all the answers. However, I do know the importance of reading and writing as well as learning and education. They're extremely important. They should be on your top list of things to accomplish on a daily basis. So that way your children can break a vicious cycle that may be put on them as time continues to move forward. Again, this is my opinions. These are not necessarily the opinions of my sponsorship. However, I believe it's extremely important to learn how to read and write, period. It's extremely important. And if you don't agree with me, please feel free to chime in, give me your remarks. Please pass this on for the people that's viewing on a regular basis every Wednesday that tune in to me and my daughter Cheyenne. Please pass this on. If any other podcast that I've done thus far, please pass this one on. The importance of education and literacy as well as learning in America or wherever you may be, because I do have friends that are abroad. However, I believe they know how to read and write, and if they don't, please call me so we can sit down and make arrangements so you can get the necessary tools that is needed to continue to prosper in this world called life. So people, again, I gave y'all facts this time. I was able to look up some of these facts because I knew exactly what I wanted to talk about. And matter of fact, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to talk about earlier last night because I was talking to a friend, and then they suggested that I talk about this, and I said, yes, I think I should talk about it because I think the importance of us winning this particular battle or war. And I don't even want to call it a war because I think we use a lot of terms loosely nowadays. However, I want to call it a potential pandemic, which is an epidemic in our society as a whole with the illiteracy that is currently going on. And please, people, don't feel ashamed, because that's one of the things that's been put upon you. And people learn differently. So now imagine if you have a different skill set of learning, and that you're going into the classroom, then they kind of just push you aside and start calling you a class clown and whatnot if your particular learning skills aren't the normality that they've been taught to teach. However, that does not stop you as an individual to keep striving, keep reaching your highest potential with learning how to read and write. I gave you 1831, slave revolt. Look it up. You don't have to believe me or whatnot. Anytime when the few that control or making decisions that control the masses realize the importance of reading and writing, and they chose to keep it from you, you have to know it's something there, people. You have to. I believe that will be common sense. But most people, as we want to use this cliche of common sense, really don't have it. And I'm not trying to bash any particular person. But if you know the importance of reading and writing, as we are, and I'm skipping a little bit with the vote, people died for y'all people. People died for me to learn the importance of reading and writing. So just imagine what potential you could possibly reach if you learn to read and write every day. How you can change the lives of not only your life, but the lives around you as it relates to your children's lives, to your girlfriend life, your wife, your husband, vice versa, whoever. Do not be afraid to want to change lives in a positive manner. Please do not. I appreciate all that continue to listen in on chats. I can appreciate the people that chime in after the podcast go over off the air. I truly do. In closing remarks, I want to leave y'all with knowledge, learning, education, in my opinion, is extremely important as you navigate through this world called life. Please pick up a book. If you don't know how to read, seek help. Please, it's not a shameful situation, because I see the social injustice that continues to happen not only to me, but to the world itself when people do not learn how to read and write. Just think about it, people. Everything you do, whether you're buying a car, whether you're buying a house, whether you're negotiating your pay for a job, whether you're filling out a job application, they're putting it in words. And if you can't read and read these words, how can you possibly get the best outcome for you and your family? In closing remarks, I'd like to say thank y'all for joining in. May y'all have a continuous blissful day. May you continue to strive to your greatness. And like I say, if you know better, it's time to do better. Don't make it a corny cliche, as we often do with a lot of them. So I'm holding myself accountable to teach somebody that don't know how to read and write to do so. Please hold yourself accountable in this aspect and responsible of teaching someone else. Young ladies and men, if you think it's cool not to learn how to read and write, you're a damn fool. Forgive me for saying that, because it's extremely important. So in closing, again, peace to all that continue to support us.